Hello, and welcome to the video about Alex's incredible story. Alex discovers a terrible revelation that his mother laid out on a piece of paper. Subscribe to my channel, and let's get started. Mary had always been a loving and devoted mother to Alex. She had raised him alone, working 2 jobs to provide for him, and had always been there for him, no matter what. Alex had never been particularly close to his father, who had left when he was just a baby, and Mary had always been both mother and father to him. Growing up, Alex had always known that his mother had kept a diary. She had never let him read it, but he had seen her writing in it many times. He had always assumed that it was just a place for her to record her thoughts and feelings, and he had never given it much thought. But then, when Mary passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack, Alex found himself going through her things, trying to make sense of his grief and come to terms with her loss. And that was when he found the diary. At first, Alex didn't think much of it. He had other things to worry about, like planning the funeral and dealing with the estate. But then, one evening, when he was feeling particularly lost and alone, he picked up the diary and started reading. As he read through the pages, he was shocked to discover that his mother had kept a record of everything that had ever happened to her. Every triumph, every heartbreak, every joy and sorrow. It was like reading a novel, except that it was all real, and it was all about his mother. Alex found himself getting sucked into the story of his mother's life. He read about her childhood, her first love, her struggles as a young mother, and her triumphs as she built a career for herself. He saw her in a new light as a woman with a rich and complex inner life, rather than just as his mother. But as Alex read on, he began to notice something strange. The diary seemed to jump around in time, with entries from different years mixed together on the same page. And then there were the blank pages, where his mother had stopped writing for weeks or even months at a time. Alex began to feel like he was missing something, like there was some key piece of information that he was not privy to. He started to wonder if there was something his mother had been keeping from him, some secret that she had never shared with anyone. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this diary than met the eye. As Alex delved deeper into the diary, he began to notice a pattern. Whenever there was a gap in the writing, there was always something significant that had happened in his mother's life. For example, there was a gap of several months in the diary around the time when his mother had gotten divorced from his father. And there was another gap around the time when she had been promoted to a high-ranking position at work. Alex started to wonder if his mother had deliberately left out certain things from the diary, perhaps to protect him or to keep him from knowing certain things about her life. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something important that he was missing, some clue that would unlock the mystery of his mother's past. Alex decided to do some dating of his own. He started going through his mother's old photo albums, looking for clues. He found pictures of her as a young woman, with a man he didn't recognize. He found pictures of her with a little girl who was not him, and with people he didn't know. He started asking around, trying to find out more about his mother's life before he was born. He talked to old friends of hers, colleagues from work, and even distant relatives. But no matter how much he searched, he couldn't seem to find the missing piece of the puzzle. Then, one day, he got a call from a woman he had never met before. She said that she had something that belonged to his mother, and that she thought he might want to see it. Alex was intrigued. He agreed to meet the woman, who turned out to be a distant cousin of his mother's. She handed him a small box, saying that it had belonged to his mother and that she had kept it safe all these years. Inside the box, Alex found a stack of letters, tied up with a ribbon. They were all addressed to his mother, and they were all from the same person, a man named David. Alex had never heard of David before, but as he read through the letters, he began to piece together the story of his mother's life in a way that he had never been able to before. He learned about the secret relationship between his mother and David, and about the daughter they had together, whom his mother had given up for adoption. He learned about the struggles his mother had faced as a young woman, trying to make a life for herself and her child without any help from the man she loved. and he learned about the sacrifices she had made for him, giving up her own happiness in order to raise him and give him the best life possible. As Alex read through the letters, he felt a mix of emotions: sadness, anger, and a deep sense of gratitude towards his mother. He realized how much she had given up for him, how much she had suffered in silence, and how much she had loved him. But he also realized something else, that he had never really known his mother at all. He had grown up with a certain image of her in his mind, but now he saw her in a whole new light. He saw her as a young woman, with dreams and aspirations and a fierce determination to make a life for herself and her child. He felt a sense of regret, too, that he had never had the chance to know her as a person, to hear her story in her own words. He wished that he could go back in time and talk to her, to ask her all the questions that he had never thought to ask before. But he knew that he couldn't do that. All he could do was try to honor her memory, to keep her story alive, and to make sure that his own children knew who their grandmother had been. Alex decided to write a book about his mother's life, using her diary and the letters from David as the basis for the story. He spent months researching, interviewing people who had known his mother, and piecing together the details of her life. As he wrote, he found that the words flowed easily, almost as if his mother were guiding his hand. He felt as though he was getting to know her in a way that he never had before, and he found that the process of writing was helping him to heal from the pain of her loss. When the book was finally finished, Alex felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a deep sense of sadness. He knew that he would never be able to share it with his mother, to hear her thoughts and opinions on the story he had told. But he also knew that he had done something important. He had given his mother a voice, and he had ensured that her story would be remembered for generations to come. The book was published, and it was a success. People were touched by the story of a young woman who had faced so many challenges and had persevered through it all. They were moved by the love story between his mother and David, and by the sacrifices she had made for her son. Alex received letters from readers who thanked him for telling his mother's story, and who shared their own stories of loss and grief. He was touched by their words, and he felt a sense of connection with them, as if they were all part of a larger community of people who had experienced the pain of losing someone they loved. But there was one letter that stood out from all the others. It was from a woman named Sarah, who wrote that she had read the book and had recognized her own story in it. She explained that she had been given up for adoption as a baby, and that she had spent her whole life wondering about her birth mother. She had never known anything about her, except for her name and the fact that she had given her up for adoption. But when she read Alex's book, she realized that his mother was her birth mother. She recognized the details of the story, and she knew that it was true. She wrote to Alex, asking if he could help her find out more about her birth mother and about the family that she had never known. Alex was stunned by Sarah's letter. He had never imagined that his book would have such an impact on someone's life. He felt a sense of responsibility to help Sarah in any way he could, to give her the answers she had been searching for. He reached out to her, and they began a correspondence that lasted for several months. He shared everything he knew about his mother, and he connected her with people who had known her. He helped her to piece together the story of her birth, and to understand why her mother had given her up for adoption. Through their conversations, Alex and Sarah developed a deep connection. They found that they had much in common, despite the fact that they had never met. They shared a love of books, a sense of humor, and a deep appreciation for their shared history. Just a minute, I want to ask you to subscribe to my channel to see more amazing stories. Thank you. Eventually, Sarah decided to come to town to meet Alex and to see the places that her mother had known. When she arrived, Alex felt a sense of nervous excitement. He had never met someone who was so connected to his mother's story, and he didn't know what to expect. But when he saw Sarah, he felt an instant connection. She had his mother's smile and her sense of humor. She had a quiet strength that reminded him of his mother, and a warmth that made him feel as though they had known each other for years. As they talked and walked through the town, Alex felt a sense of closure. He realized that his mother's story had come full circle, and that he'd been a part of something much bigger than himself. He felt a sense of gratitude for the life that his mother had lived, and for the legacy that she had left behind. But there was still one mystery that remained unsolved. Alex had never been able to find out who had sent him the diary or why. He had always assumed that it had been one of his mother's friends, or perhaps one of the nurses who had cared for her in the hospital. But as he walked through the town with Sarah, he began to wonder if there was more to the story than he had realized. He wondered if someone had deliberately sent him the diary, knowing that it would lead him to Sarah and to the truth about his mother's past. He decided to ask Sarah if she knew anything about it. She looked at him with a serious expression, and then she nodded. "I know who sent you the diary," she said. "It was me." Alex was stunned. He had never imagined that Sarah could have been behind it all. "Why did you do it?" he asked. Sarah took a deep breath. "I did it because I wanted to find my mother," she said. "I knew that the diary was the key to unlocking the mystery of my past, and I knew that you were the only one who could help me." Alex felt a sense of awe as he looked at Sarah. He realized that she had been the driving force behind his mother's story, and that she had brought him a sense of closure that he had never thought possible. Together, they walked through the town, sharing memories and stories. They talked about the past and about the future. And as they said their goodbyes, Alex felt a sense of peace. He knew that his mother's legacy would live on, through the stories that he had told and through the lives that he had touched. And he knew that he had found a new friend, a kindred spirit, in Sarah. As Alex drove back home, he couldn't stop thinking about the events of the past few days. He had found his mother's diary, learned about her secret past, and discovered a new friend in Sarah. It had been an emotional journey, but one that he was grateful for. When he arrived home, he went straight to his study and began to write. He wrote about his mother's story, about the things he had learned, and about the people he had met along the way. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Alex poured his heart and soul into his writing, and soon he had completed a manuscript that he was proud of. He sent the manuscript to several publishers, but most of them rejected it. They said that the story was too niche, too focused on the past, and that it wouldn't appeal to a wide enough audience. Alex felt disappointed, but he didn't give up. He kept sending the manuscript out, and eventually, he received a letter from a small publishing house in London. The letter said that they had read his manuscript and that they were interested in publishing it. They said that they believed in the power of his story, and that they thought it could make a difference in the world. Alex was overjoyed. He signed a contract with the publishing house, and soon his book was in production. The book was released to critical acclaim. It was praised for its honesty, its raw emotion, and its ability to touch the hearts of readers. Alex went on a book tour, speaking to audiences all over the world. He shared his mother's story, and he listened as others shared their own stories with him. And in the end, Alex realized that his mother's diary had given him more than just a glimpse into her past. It had given him a purpose, a mission, and a chance to connect with others in a way that he had never thought possible. But as much as Alex loved sharing his mother's story, there was one part of it that he still couldn't understand. The part about the man with the scar. Alex had searched through his mother's diary, trying to find any more information about the man, but there was nothing. It was as if he had never existed. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, that there was something his mother had left out. He decided to investigate further. He went back to the town where his mother had grown up, hoping to find someone who might know something about the man with the scar. He talked to people who had known his mother, but no one had ever heard of the man. It was as if he had never existed. Alex was about to give up when he met an old man who had lived in the town for his entire life. The man was in his 90s, but his mind was sharp as a tack. Alex told him about his mother's diary and the man with the scar. The old man thought for a moment, then said that he might know something. He told Alex about a man who had come to the town many years ago. The man had been mysterious, always wearing a hat and sunglasses to hide his face. He had only stayed for a few weeks before disappearing without a trace. The old man didn't know the man's name or anything else about him, but Alex was intrigued. He decided to investigate further. He searched through old newspapers and archives, trying to find any mention of the man with the scar. And eventually, he found something. There was an article in an old newspaper about a man who had been killed in a car accident many years ago. The man had been driving a car with false license plates, and the police had never been able to identify him. Alex realized that this might be the man with the scar. He contacted the police, and they agreed to reopen the case. They were able to identify the man as a former spy who had been working for the government. He had gone rogue and had been on the run for many years, always changing his identity to avoid detection. Alex was shocked by the revelation. He had never imagined that his mother's secret past would lead him to uncover a government conspiracy. But he was also grateful. He felt like he had finally solved the mystery that had been haunting him for so long. And he knew that his mother would be proud of him for never giving up on the search for the truth. As Alex continued to dig deeper, he found more and more evidence that his mother had been involved in espionage during the Cold War. He found old photographs of her with men who he recognized as former spies. He found documents that proved she had been a courier for sensitive information. He was amazed by the double life his mother had led. She had been a loving and devoted parent, but she had also been a skilled and daring spy. Alex realized that his mother's life had been much more complicated than he had ever imagined. He wondered how she had managed to keep her secret life hidden for so long. He decided to talk to his mother's former colleagues, hoping to gain more insight into her past. He tracked down an old colleague of his mother's, a man who had worked with her during the height of the Cold War. The man was now retired and living in Florida. Alex traveled to Florida to meet with the man, hoping to learn more about his mother's past. The man was initially reluctant to talk, but Alex was persistent. He told the man that he was writing a book about his mother's life and that he needed his help. Eventually, the man relented and began to tell Alex about his mother's work as a spy. He told Alex that his mother had been one of the best spies he had ever worked with. She was fearless and resourceful, always willing to take risks to get the job done. He also told Alex about a mission that his mother had undertaken many years ago. It was a dangerous mission, and his mother had known that there was a high chance that she would not survive. But she had gone anyway, determined to do her duty and protect her country. And in the end, she had succeeded. The mission had been a success, and the information she had gathered had helped to bring about the end of the Cold War. Alex was awed by his mother's bravery and determination. He felt like he was just beginning to understand the incredible woman that she had been. He thanked the man for his time and left Florida, more determined than ever to tell his mother's story to the world. As Alex continued to work on his mother's story, he came across more and more evidence of her incredible bravery and selflessness. He learned that his mother had been involved in many missions during her time as a spy, often risking her life to gather vital intelligence. But what struck Alex the most was his mother's willingness to put her country and her duty above her own personal safety and well-being. He realized that his mother had truly been a hero, not just to him and his family, but to her country as well. As he delved deeper into her story, Alex also began to uncover some darker aspects of his mother's past. He learned that she had been involved in some morally ambiguous activities during her time as a spy, and that she had struggled with the guilt and trauma that came with her work. But even in the face of these challenges, his mother had remained committed to her duty and to her country. Alex was amazed by the complexity of his mother's character. She had been a loving and devoted parent, a skilled and daring spy, and a woman who had grappled with difficult moral dilemmas. He knew that telling her story would be a daunting task, but he was more determined than ever to do justice to the incredible life she had led. As Alex continued to read through his mother's diary, he came across a particularly troubling entry. In it, His mother wrote about a mission she had been tasked with that had gone horribly wrong. She had been working with a team of other agents to gather intelligence on a terrorist group, but something had gone awry and the mission had ended in disaster. Several of her colleagues had been killed, and his mother had barely escaped with her own life. Reading about the trauma and guilt his mother had experienced after that mission was difficult for Alex, but he was determined to keep going. He knew that he needed to understand the full scope of his mother's life in order to do justice to her story, and as he read on, he began to piece together a shocking revelation. Alex had always known that his mother had been a spy, but as he read through her diary, he began to realize the extent of her involvement in some of the most pivotal moments of the Cold War. He discovered that his mother had not only worked with the CIA, but that she had also been involved with MI6, the British intelligence agency. And it was through her work with MI6 that Alex uncovered a shocking truth about his mother's past. In one of the later entries in her diary, his mother wrote about a mission she had undertaken on behalf of MI6. She had been tasked with infiltrating a high-level Soviet intelligence agency, posing as a double agent in order to gather intelligence for the British. But as Alex read on, he realized that his mother's mission had been far more dangerous than she'd had let on. It seemed that she had fallen in love with one of her Soviet handlers, and that their relationship had gone far deeper than anyone had realized. In the pages of her diary, Alex read about the emotional turmoil his mother had gone through as she struggled to reconcile her love for her handler with her loyalty to her country. He was shocked and saddened to learn that his mother had been forced to make an impossible choice between her heart and her duty. As Alex continued to read through his mother's diary, he discovered that her relationship with her Soviet handler had been even more complicated than he had initially thought. It seemed that she had become pregnant with his child and had ultimately made the difficult decision to give the baby up for adoption. The pain and heartbreak that his mother had gone through in the aftermath of that decision was palpable in the pages of her diary, and Alex couldn't help but feel a deep sense of empathy for her. But as he read on, he also realized that there was more to the story than he had initially thought. In one of the final entries in her diary, his mother wrote about a meeting she had had with her Soviet handler many years after their affair had ended. It seemed that he had come to her seeking forgiveness, and that the two of them had reconciled in the years that followed. Alex was stunned by this revelation and couldn't help but wonder what had happened to his half-sibling. Had his mother ever reunited with the child she had given up for adoption? Or had that chapter of her life been permanently closed? Over the next few weeks, Alex became obsessed with uncovering the truth about his mother's past. He spent hours poring over old photographs and documents, trying to piece together the puzzle of her life. He also spent time reaching out to his mother's former colleagues and contacts, trying to learn as much as he could about her work as a spy. As he dug deeper and deeper, Alex began to realize just how much his mother had sacrificed in service to her country. He learned about missions she had undertaken in war zones and conflict zones around the world, often at great personal risk. He also discovered that his mother had been involved in some of the most high-stakes diplomatic negotiations of the Cold War era, working tirelessly to ensure that peace was maintained between the superpowers. Despite the many dangers she faced and the sacrifices she made, however, Alex could sense that his mother had found a deep sense of purpose in her work. She had truly believed that what she was doing was making a difference in the world, and that her efforts would help to bring about a safer and more just society for future generations. As Alex continued to delve into his mother's past, he became increasingly aware of just how little he had really known about her. For years, he had assumed that his mother had been a simple housewife, devoting herself to her family and little else. But now he realized that nothing could be further from the truth. His mother had been a brilliant and courageous woman, a true trailblazer in the male-dominated world of espionage. And while her accomplishments had never been publicly recognized, Alex knew that they were nothing short of remarkable. As he sat in his mother's old armchair, surrounded by her belongings and memories, he felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude for everything she had done. and he knew that he would never look at her the same way again. But as Alex continued to read through his mother's diary, he began to sense that something was amiss. There were entries that seemed to hint at secrets and lies, and others that were so heavily redacted that they were almost illegible. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that there was something his mother had been hiding from him all these years. Desperate for answers, he turned to his mother's old friends and colleagues, hoping that they could shed some light on the matter. But no one seemed to know anything about the mysterious entries in the diary, and many of them grew increasingly uncomfortable when Alex pressed for details. As he continued his search, Alex began to feel as though he was descending down a rabbit hole, unsure of what he might find at the bottom. But he was determined to uncover the truth, no matter what it might be. As Alex continued his search for answers, he began to piece together a disturbing picture of his mother's life. It seemed that she had been involved in some kind of secret operation, one that had involved dangerous missions and high stakes. And as he read through her diary, he began to suspect that his mother had been caught up in something much bigger than herself. But as Alex tried to uncover the truth, he found himself facing one obstacle after another. Some of his mother's old friends refused to speak to him, while others denied any knowledge of the operation she had been involved in. It was as if everyone was trying to keep something from him, something that could shatter his entire understanding of who his mother really was. But Alex refused to give up. He knew that he had to keep digging, no matter how uncomfortable or painful it might be. As Alex delved deeper into his mother's diary, he began to notice a pattern in the heavily redacted entries. There were certain dates that kept appearing again and again, dates that seemed to be important somehow. With a sinking feeling, Alex realized that these dates corresponded with some of the most significant events in his own life. It was as if his mother had been watching over him from afar, somehow connected to the events that had shaped his life. But how was that possible? And what did it all mean? As Alex pondered these questions, he received an unexpected message from one of his mother's old friends. The woman had been reluctant to speak to him before, but now she seemed eager to share what she knew. Alex met with her at a local cafe, and as they talked, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. His mother, it seemed, had been a spy, a highly trained operative who had worked for a secret government agency. But that was just the beginning of the story. The woman had much more to share, including some shocking revelations about Alex's own past. Alex was stunned by what he had just heard. His mother, a spy. It was almost too much to believe. But as he looked into the woman's eyes, he could tell she was telling the truth. She explained how his mother had been recruited while she was still in college, how she had gone through years of training, learning everything from hand-to-hand combat to cryptography. It had been a dangerous and thrilling life, but it had taken a toll on his mother. She had become increasingly paranoid and had started to distance herself from everyone, including Alex. But why had she kept it a secret? Why hadn't she told him about her past? The woman explained that his mother had been afraid for his safety. She had wanted to protect him from the dangers of her world, to shield him from the truth. As Alex listened to her words, he felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, he was proud of his mother and what she had accomplished. On the other hand, he was angry that she had kept this secret from him for so long. But there was still so much he didn't know. He had to keep reading the diary to see if there were any more clues to his mother's past. Alex spent the next few hours reading through his mother's diary, fascinated by the stories she had written down. He learned about her missions, her colleagues, and even a few romances she had had along the way. But as he got closer to the end of the diary, he started to feel a sense of unease. His mother's tone had changed, and there was a growing sense of paranoia in her writing. She talked about feeling like she was being watched, about strange men following her on the street, about a sense of impending danger. Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of dread as he read through these entries. Had his mother been right? Had someone been after her? He was so lost in thought that he didn't even notice the knock on the door until the woman spoke up. "Alex, are you okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. He looked up to see her standing in the doorway, her eyes fixed on him. "I don't know," he admitted. "This diary, it's just so strange. It's like my mother was living a double life." The woman nodded sympathetically. "It's a lot to take in," she said. "But you're not alone. We're here for you." Alex felt a small sense of comfort at her words, but he knew he had a long way to go before he could make sense of everything. Alex spent the rest of the day poring over his mother's diary, trying to piece together the mystery of her life. As he read, he began to notice certain patterns and connections that he hadn't seen before. One name in particular kept popping up, a man named Jack. According to his mother's writing, Jack was a colleague of hers who she had worked closely with on several missions. But there was something else there too, something that Alex couldn't quite put his finger on. He decided to do some digging to see if he could find out more about this Jack character. He started by looking through his mother's old files and documents, but he didn't find anything useful. Then he turned to the internet, doing a search for Jack and his mother's former agency. The results were overwhelming, but he finally found what he was looking for. A news article from a few years ago about a former agent who had gone rogue. The agent's name, Jack. Alex felt a cold sense of fear wash over him as he read through the article. According to the report, Jack had gone off the grid after being accused of selling state secrets to foreign governments. Could this be the same Jack that his mother had worked with all those years ago? And if so, what did that mean for her? He knew he had to keep digging to find out the truth about his mother's past. But he also knew that he was in over his head. He needed help. Alex reached out to his mother's former colleagues and was able to piece together the truth about her past. It turned out that she had been working undercover for the government and had been tasked with infiltrating a dangerous criminal organization. Her diary contained critical information about the organization, which could have led to their downfall. Alex felt a mix of emotions as he read through his mother's diary. He was proud of her for the courage and dedication she has shown in her work, but he also felt angry that she had kept her true identity and work a secret from him. He wished he had known so that he could have supported her better and helped her carry the burden of her work. In the end, Alex decided to honor his mother's memory by publishing her diary. He wanted the world to know about her bravery and the sacrifices she had made for the greater good. The diary became a bestseller, and Alex was able to donate the proceeds to a charity that supported families of law enforcement officers and intelligence agents. As he closed the book for the final time, Alex felt a sense of closure and peace. He knew that his mother's legacy would live on, and that her work would continue to inspire others for generations to come. Dear viewers, thank you for listening to this emotional story. We hope this story touched your hearts and made you think about the importance of family and the power of secrets. Life is precious, and we should make the most of the time we have with our loved ones. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos.